So why don't black men in the UK date black women? It is a story we hear both in the UK and in America. It's a podcast topic, it's a group chat topic, it's a TikTok topic. And clips like this kind of prove it.
At The Honey Effect says, a lot of straight black men, especially of Caribbean descent, are not dating black women in Britain anymore. They're dating interracially. I think more and more black women are starting to give up on them and date interracially too. This is asking where the black men are. We're getting all sorts in.
I agree. I think a lot of men are dating outside of the race. A lot of my friends are.
Why?
Few reasons.
1, 2, 3 of them.
What's the prime one that you've heard?
A good one is...
A good one or one?
The number one is... what's the word for it? There's a word for it. I'll use the right word. It's like... submission?
Oh, they're submissive.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, like, I'll give you an example. Like, a lot of my friends go for like Greek, North London, innit? So a lot of Greek girls, a lot of Cypriot girls, a lot of Turkish girls, like, so a lot of Mediterranean mix. They're raised to be like wives, like housewives.
Really and truly, I want to answer 3 questions. Number 1, is it actually true that black men in the UK date outside their race more than other men in Britain? Number 2, what's going on with black Caribbean men specifically? Because our numbers are really different. And number 3, which might be a little bit left field, but Dr. Umar Johnson really advocates for marrying within the race because of economic reasons. And I want to explore that in this video. So actually, when we look at the 2021 census data, it actually shows us that 72% of black men in England and Wales are in relationships with black women. So the whole black men don't date black women thing, statistically, in Britain, is not quite true. But when you actually zoom in a little bit further, you start to see why the old trope of black men don't date black women, where it really comes from, right? And look, I'm purely going to speak from a UK perspective. I made this same video about a year ago and I threw in a lot of American statistics, but I'm going to keep this one UK centric. So 53% of black Caribbean men specifically are with someone who is not black, and nearly 1 in 3 are with a white British woman. The ONS released data in the 2021 census regarding couples by ethnicity in 2024, but it wasn't published in a percentage format, so I had to do some digging myself and work it out. I've actually left the link in the description. Alongside that, if you wish to support the channel, you could buy me a coffee to allow me to continue to do the research and make videos like this. Before I dump the numbers on you, I need to explain how this data actually came together, because if I don't, some of you are just going to drop a comment saying, oh, the stats can say anything, and log off. Most of my information will come from the 2021 census, which was in England and Wales, so this won't include Scotland or Northern Ireland. They run a separate census. So it also only counts opposite sex couples, so same-sex partnerships are a whole different table. That's another video. It includes people who are married in a civil partnership and people who are cohabiting. Alongside that as well, the ONS uses 18 ethnic groups. But for this video, I'm going to use what I call any black partner, which basically lumps Africans, Caribbeans, and other black together, because those are the categories they give us. And because when you lot ask, do black men date black women, you're not asking whether a Nigerian man is with a Ghanaian woman, but I will explain the differences in the way we date as Caribbean and African men as we go through. But any black partner will basically mean any black partner, full stop. All the info will be linked below again. So let's tackle the biggest lie, that black men don't date black women. Well, no. In 2021, of every black man in England and Wales in a relationship, so that's African, Caribbean, and other black, 72% of them were with a black woman. That is nearly 3/4. Only 28% were with someone who isn't black. So when Dr. Umar or one of these podcast bros gets up there and says black men are wholesale abandoning black women, the actual numbers tells you they're wrong, or at least they're wrong at the top line. Most black British men in couples are with black British women. That is just the fact of it. But the reality is that there is a particular black man from a certain ethnic group that is holding these numbers up. And yes, most of you are smart enough to know, so I won't play dumb. Black African men in the UK are more likely to be with a black woman compared to black Caribbean men. We know this already, but the question we need to explore is why? And also, how this affects our community. I'll be honest. As a black Caribbean man, I don't think I really noticed it until I got a bit older. I personally spent the first half of my adulthood in another country, but what I did notice is many black British born men from Caribbean families do date outside their race. Some will call it self-hate, but actually the way that I see it is this. The same indoctrination that causes black women to hate wearing their own natural hair is the same indoctrination and socialization that makes black men think that non-black is better. The idea that light is right. The Eurocentric ideas of beauty have affected men men just as much as they affect women, in my opinion. And I can't tell you the countless stories and arguments I've had with black men who claim to not date black women, even though their sisters are black, their mums are black, their friends are black. But I digress. I will get into the personal stories a little bit later. Here's where the picture stops being convenient. If you break black men down by African versus Caribbean, which the census does do, the numbers are completely different. Black African brothers, 83% are with a black woman. Only about 1 in 6 aren't. Africans, statistically, are absolutely holding it down. Let's just be real. Black Caribbean men, though, 52%, just over half. That means that nearly 1 in 2 Caribbean men in England and Wales who are in a relationship are with a woman who is not black. And nearly 1 in 3, 31%, are with a white British woman specifically. The single biggest outside pairing, if you want to call it that. Now look, I'm a Caribbean man. And when I saw that number, I can't lie, I was a little bit surprised. We have all grown up with the jokes of Jamaican men love fat white women or something of that nature. And I recently came across an old TikTok from this guy right here.
Somebody please tell Dr. Umar Johnson that black men in the UK are not going to be listening to his advice or his way of life when he's telling them to stay away from white women and to stick to black women. That is not going to happen. Black men in the UK are heavily dependent on the economic security that white women provide. Black men in the UK get into relationships with women. I'm talking about adult men, not teenagers who still live at their mum's house and don't have life pressures on them. I'm talking about adult black men in the UK get into relationships with women to find a place to live for free and to find a place where they haven't got to pay bills. That's why black men in the UK are in relationships with white women on mass amounts, on mass levels. Because white women will lie and do benefits fraud to basically allow her man to live with her for very long periods of time, 10, 15, 20 years, where he doesn't have to pay any bills and he doesn't have any big financial commitments. Black women are not having it. I'm telling you, as somebody that's been with black gal after black gal after black, bro, I've been in relationships. My relationships have all been with black women. They're not allowed, they cannot respect a man, they cannot respect a black man, they cannot consistently have sex with a black man, they cannot love a black man, they cannot talk to a black man nicely if he's had to move into her life and she's had to provide security for him. It will run out very quickly. He won't get longer than 12 months in that kind of situation. So when Dr. Umar Johnson is saying to black men, you need to stick with black women, he needs to go beneath the layer and start talking about black men's mentality and black men's attitude towards economics and towards family economics, basically. Man, them get money, they buy loads of trainers, they buy loads of designer clothes, they go on holidays, they go to restaurants, they rent cars, they finance cars, they cheat on their girls by booking hotels and all of that. They spend their money like that, but they ain't spending no money on owning, possessing and maintaining a house in the UK. And because they're not doing that, they need white women. Do you understand what I mean?
And I mean, the question I have to ask is he wrong? A lot of black men see the financial benefits of being with a woman outside their race and how it benefits them. The black men not dating black women thing is more specific to Caribbean black men in the UK. And I'm sure some of my brothers are going to be in the comments saying, it's love. You can't decide who you love. It's just a preference. But the issue with that argument is not necessarily that it's not true, because yes, men have innate signals and, you know, there's things that we see in women, but none of it is coded in race. It is socialized. It is an indoctrination process from young. It is the movies you consume. It's the TV that you watch, the social media you scroll on, and also your peers. And I'll give you a prime example of myself, basically. I played football for 10 years. I was at Crystal Palace Football Club. And if you know about sports in general, the changing room can be a place where many strong characters can collide. The truth is, many men in these changing rooms also want to fit in. They want to be accepted. And one way of being accepted is to ensure that your other half looks a certain way or fits a certain aesthetic, if you know what I mean. And think of it like this, like when us guys go for meals or double dates and whatnot, sometimes men are not picking women for themselves, but also picking for how other men will perceive the lady they have on their arm. I know that sounds a little bit funny, but it's true. Like men sometimes are picking women for other men, if you get what I'm saying. So the next question I feel that's worth tackling here is, do black men date outside their race more than other men in Britain? Now, let me break down the data here. Bangladeshi men. So about 93% of them are with Bangladeshi women. Pakistani men, about 90%. Indian men, 88%. Chinese men, 84%. Black African men 79%, and white British men around 93%. I know you might be thinking I just said 83% earlier for black African men, but this is specifically black African men dating black African women. My previous data was regarding black African men dating black African women and or Caribbean women. So that's why. So from the numbers here, we can see white men don't date outside their race at all, or they don't like to anyway. And across every one of these groups, at least 8 in 10 men are in a relationship with women from the same background. Then you get to black Caribbean men, and we are sitting at less than half. Again, this is someone within your own ethnic group. So that means the category within the ONS. So it doesn't account for Caribbean men who might date black African women, if you remember what I said earlier. So let's get back to the why of this conversation, because it's not just one single thing. If we look at the South Asian groups, right, they have religion doing a lot of heavy lifting for them. Islam, Hinduism, Sikhism, marrying within faith is a very strong tradition for them, which usually means to marry within the same ethnicity. And family involvement in who you end up with is still very real in those communities. The aunties have a say, the parents have a say, the uncles have a say. Everyone in the family has opinions and suggestions, and you are influenced to make a decision based on that. Chinese men have a very similar story. They have a smaller diaspora, there's a language barrier, a strong cultural pool to preserve the heritage. And Africans, even though still relatively fresh here in mass numbers, most large-scale African migration to the UK is post-1990s. So the ties back to home are still relatively fresh and hot. The language is spoken at home, the food, the church, the mosque, whatever it may be, all of it keeps you inside your insulated community. And then you have us Caribbean men. We've been there since the 1940s. We don't have a religion that separates us from white Britain. Most of us are Christian, right? That's the religion they gave us. That's another argument, another video. But it's the same as your average British white family. We don't have a language barrier. We speak English. Obviously, we speak patois, but English. And we don't have arranged marriages. Yes, we got loads of aunties and uncles, but they're not vetting our dating preferences. They're not making decisions on who we date. So all the cultural barriers, I guess, that keep us from other groups are actually a bit lower for us. They're weaker for us. And when the barriers are weak, we can just walk through them, which is what we're seeing. And again, this is not an excuse for black men. This is more just kind of exploring what's the actual mechanism here. Like, why is it this way? Okay, because that's what we need to explore here. So when I last touched on this topic, someone left a comment and they said, you know, I was just talking about couples in general. What about marriage? The 2021 census doesn't split into ethnic by marriage versus cohabiting, but the 2011 one did. And it did show cohabiting couples were about 12% into ethnic and married couples were about 8%. So marriage across the whole population is more racially loyal than just living together. Long-term commitment, families, they weigh in more. So I guess it makes more sense. There is a slightly bigger marriage story in the Caribbean community. And there's a research group called Civitas, right? And they analyzed the 2021 census and they found that only 27% of black Caribbean adults are married at all. That is the lowest. I want to say that again. That is the lowest of any ethnic group in Britain. White British is around 44%. Bangladeshi, Pakistani, Indian are just over 60%. So while they are over 60%, we're on 27. I want to make that clear. So before you even ask who are Caribbean people marrying, you kind of have to ask the question, are Caribbean people marrying at all? And the answer for the majority is no, which means that when we kind of obsess over the interracial marriage statistics and we're arguing over the small slice of Caribbean people who actually get married in the first place, we're actually kind of ignoring a bigger question, which is that our community, more than any other in Britain, doesn't really do marriage. And this is where I'm going to get on my little soapbox for a minute, yeah? Because I don't think we talk enough about what marriage actually does for a community. We love the fancy wedding. You know, we love the, oh, he's got to buy my ring. He's got to propose within 2 years. You know, we love stunting on all our friends and inviting 100 people and everyone spending mad money that could buy you a house and looking fancy and getting the pictures and the videos. But we need to look at the mechanism and institution of marriage itself, because it is inherently political. Whether you like the sound of it or not, marriage is essentially a wealth building tool. It's 2 incomes under one roof. It's shared assets. It's a house you can actually afford because you're not the only one doing it. It's a pension that has 2 people paying into it. It's inheritance that stays in the family instead of me having to split it 6 ways. Every other community in Britain that's building wealth right now is doing it through marriage. Indians, Pakistanis, Bangladeshis, again, over 60% are married. And yes, of course, there are cultural ties, but it is strategic as well. I hate to say it, but I don't think marriage is about love, and that's my personal opinion. That's a modern framing. Our ancestors married to bring land together. In medieval times, it was to join houses and families. This idea of love and the extravagant party and, you know, all that stuff, that's all modern. And then if we even think politically, Statistically, married households, they're more likely to own property, and property owners, they get listened to. They're also more stable. The kids stay in the same school, the same postcode, the same community, and that builds the kind of neighborhood presence that actually shifts things. We all want black politicians, black business owners, black landlords, black wealth, and we want it to be passed down. But a lot of that starts with two black people committing to each other on paper. Now we start to get into the Dr. Umar territory, but I'm going to get there, so just bear with me. Let me keep cooking first. Now, there isn't any clear study on this, right? There is no clear study on the economic impact of marriage on the black British community, because if there was, I would have found it by now. But you don't need to study to see this. All you have to do is look at every other community in Britain and clock what they're doing and what we're not doing. And I'm not saying every relationship has to end in marriage. I'm not saying single mums aren't out here doing incredible work, because they are. My own family is an example of that. But if we're being honest, doing it alone is harder. It's harder financially. From a logistical standpoint, it's harder. It's harder on the kids, and the community pays a price for that too, even if we don't want to admit it. Okay, Dr. Umar time, Dr. Umar. So Dr. Umar's framing is that a black man who dates a white woman is essentially waving a surrender flag to white supremacy. He literally uses the phrase buck broken. I shouldn't laugh, but it's kind of funny. He calls white women snow bunnies, as we know, and the brothers who date them, they get called bunny hoppers. We've seen it all before. Now, that's an American framing from a specifically African-American racial history, and there are a lot of parallels to what is happening here. It's different, but it exists. Britain doesn't have the same racial kind of history and mythology as America does. We never had Jim Crow in the way they did. We don't quite have that same violent, hyper-visible history of black, white, sexual policing. What we do have is a colonial legacy. We have Windrush. We have a messier, more mixed reality on the ground. The white and black Caribbean category in the census is now the biggest mixed category in Britain. Over 500,000 people. That's a lot of British families that Dr. Umar's framework has nowhere to put. Although, to be fair to him, in his framing, he labels biracial or mixed race as black if that is what they identify with. What I personally find more fascinating with Dr. Umar's approach is that he specifically laments black men who have resources but choose to date outside their race. Ultimately, his resources are now being passed onto another community who are already likely ahead of us if we are talking socio-economically. Let's remove our emotions and feelings from this for a second and look at marriage as a political institution, because it is a political act. When you marry and you die, your wealth, your estate, it will go to your wife. And if she's not of the same ethnicity of you, then technically, yes, your wealth is going outside of your own community. Now, I know there are a bunch of you, man, on here that could care less about the community. And that's fair enough. Each to their own. I'm not here to judge you for what you do, but I mean, integrity. All I'm going to say is this. One thing that the black community suffer with a lot is this hyper individualism. And that's one of the reasons why. Now, I want to be fair, because it's very easy to make this whole video about what black men are doing and never ask what black women do, right? So let me flip the data a little bit on you. Black African women, 88% are with a black man. That's even higher than African men. Black Caribbean women, according to the data, about 68% are with a black man. That's obviously higher than the Caribbean men again. So yes, black women in the UK are more likely to be with a black partner than black men are. And that's a real gender gap. About 16 percentage points for Caribbeans and about 5 for Africans. But before anyone uses this to beat black men over the head in the comments, please look at this from another ethnicity. And I had to double check this, and I had to go to 2 different sources. But Chinese men in the UK, right? 16% are with a non-Chinese woman. But Chinese women, right? Around 40% are dating a non-Chinese male. That's a 24% difference. And it's actually the other way. So the idea of men dating outside their race more than women is obviously not universal. In some communities, actually the women. In the Indian community, it's basically identical, 12% both ways. So when we make this a moral referendum on black men specifically, we're ignoring that this happens across every diaspora, but just in different directions. So why are Caribbean men so much higher than African men? It's not like some genetic difference. It's not that we love ourselves less. The single biggest driver is time, in my opinion. Caribbean migration to Britain peaked between 1948 and 1971. You heard about the Windrush probably a million times. So a Caribbean man born in Britain today has grandparents, probably great-grandparents who came here multi-generational, majority UK born. African migration is much more recent from a large-scale perspective. The most large-scale African migration to the UK has happened since the 1990s, which means the average Black African adult in the UK today is more likely to be first or second generation. And there was some research out of Essex University that came out just almost 20 years ago, right? I'll put in the description. And they basically found that UK-born African men out-partnered, so dated outside their race, at 40% versus 22% for African men overall. So when you strip out the first generation, the UK-born Africans are already halfway to the Caribbean numbers. So I ain't making no judgments here, but give it another 20, 30 years, another generation, and Black African men in Britain will probably look statistically identical to Black Caribbean now. I bet you didn't see that coming. So what looks like, I guess, a moral difference between two Black communities is actually just a settlement timing difference, in my opinion. The Caribbean community is ahead of the African community by a generation or two, and the numbers are traveling in the same exact direction. And again, I'm not trying to make excuses. I ain't making excuses for my brothers, but it's an explanation and it shows the difference. So is it true Black men don't date Black women in the UK? No. 72% of us are in a relationship with Black women, and that is a top line fact. But is there something happening specifically with Black Caribbean men? Yes, obviously. Literally half of us are in a relationship with Caribbean women, and it's barely half. And nearly 1 in 3 are with a white British woman. That is not the same story as Black men are done with Black women. It's a Caribbean specific story about a community that arrived a little bit earlier and we integrated a bit deeper, and now statistically we are shrinking. Now look, I don't have a clean answer for what to do about this, but I am one of the 47% of Caribbean men whose dating history has been majority Black women. I've said that on this channel many times. People want to look at Love is Blind and make their conclusions, but that was a bit of fun. But I'm not here to judge anybody, right? I'm not here to blast the other 50+% of men, because, we're all trying to work out this British Caribbean thing. Do I think that dating within your race is a way to keep our community stronger? Do I think that we should be building within community? Of course I believe that. That is one of my beliefs as a person, as a man. But I understand all the layers and all the reasons why some Black men are struggling. They don't see race, although I hate that term. They just think, oh, love who you love, blah, blah, blah. And that's okay if you don't believe that dating and marrying is truly political. In my opinion, it is a political decision. It is not a love decision. And sometimes you have to play politics. What I will say is, though, if we still want to be here as a community in 50 years, we need to stop pretending the numbers don't say what they say. And as always, all my stats are linked in the description. One of the biggest factors that affect our ability to marry, and also why I think many Black women are also moving on from Black men as a whole, is our financial situation. And if you want to know why the Black economy is getting worse for Black men, you need to watch this video right here. Don't forget to buy me a coffee. And also, guys, I've been getting a few emails requesting me to come and speak at events and public gatherings and stuff. And look, I'm open to talking at events, but if you're going to ask me to go across the country and you ain't going to cover my travel, please just respect my time. I will do things for free, obviously, but I live in one of the most expensive places in the world. You have to make sure, travel has to be covered. Let's just be fair. But I would love to come and speak at any events or anything coming up over the next couple of months. But yeah, peace.